So we're here with Nicole Torres. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And Nicole is the owner of the Resilient Athlete business here in Naples. Tell us a little bit about your company.
Yeah. So we are formerly the Resilient Athlete Physical Therapy and Performance. So we're a performance-based physical therapy clinic. We work with motivated, active adults who are honestly kind of misguided by traditional healthcare, that are looking to get back to being active really for their entire lives. So,
yeah, and we were talking a little bit before we got on. Who's your ideal client?
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of blended it in there a little bit, but definitely motivated, active adults. Mm-hmm. Motivated being a really big part of who we want to see. Mm-hmm. And then really, if I were to say like this person is the perfect person, it's probably someone who went to a different provider initially and looked around and said, no one in here looks like me. No one in here looks active. I feel like there's probably something better out there that's a little bit more high functioning. There's not enough weight for me to get back to doing XYZ. Like I'm using a lot of bands. The exercises are kind of the same. And then we get calls from people saying like, hey, I actually was already going to physical therapy, or maybe I'm still in physical therapy. I have all my sessions planned, but I've been doing the same thing for 3 weeks and I know there's something better out there. So that's like, if I were to say perfect ideal client, it's like that person that already knows that there's something better out there. They just haven't found it yet. Yeah. And then every once in a while, we'll get the people that stumble across us first, and they're just like, oh, this is great. And we're like, not everyone is like us. But yeah, so definitely the mismanaged active adult, I would say.
How did you come about opening up this business? Like what led you to get into this type of industry and open up your business?
Yeah. So this is my second career. I ventured into the CrossFit space in 2013, drank the Kool-Aid and started doing CrossFit myself, coaching CrossFit. And I started noticing that people were, unable to do things. Maybe their mobility was bad or their shoulder would hurt. And so I would always try to help them out as best as I could. And then realize that there is a kind of like sports performance therapy out there that help these types of people. So quit my job, went back to school, flash forward. Around 2015, before I'd even started PT school, I had injured my shoulder and went to an orthopedic surgeon, and their response was stop doing CrossFit. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that, but all right. I guess I'll just figure it out on my own, right? And I just saw this hole and this opportunity of lack of performance-based clinicians that understood not only like CrossFit athletes, but like people who like to power lift or kind of be in the top end of sport that weren't just young teenagers or college athletes, right? So I really love working with adults that are, in their 30s to 70s that are still crushing it. They're still running, lifting weights, playing pickleball, that kind of stuff. Because even these people that we might traditionally look at as older, they still, they see themselves as athletes, right? Like pickleball is crushing it in Naples. We know this.
Yeah. I gotta get into that.
Yeah. More and more older adults are going because it's a very low entry, like doesn't take a lot of tech and like skill to get just out there, which we love because people are moving again. But they look around and they identify as an athlete. And even with them, they go to physical therapy with people their same age, but they're like, I know that person's 65, but they can't get out of a chair, right? Yeah. Like I'm trying to get back to playing, tournaments. So it's definitely not about age. It's about, I just saw the opportunity for people who can be treated like athletes at any age. So, I think when I first started my business, I was telling my brother the name of the company and he's like, I don't know. I think that might scare some people because the word athlete is in it. Right. And I truly believe that there are a lot of older people out there that still identify as athletes themselves. So we kind of stole a little bit of a Nike had a saying that was basically, if you have a body, you're an athlete. And that's kind of how we feel. Like everyone who walks into the door is an athlete, whether you're professional level or recreational athlete. That's
what and I like the word resilient. I think that's a great word. What has business And it's great for your business to be named the Resilient Athlete, but also in business, you need to be resilient.
Oh, yeah.
What are some things that you've learned, opening up this business, maybe hurdles along the way that have kind of had to bring out, that resilient side? Or are you not, or has that not happened yet? Or
oh, no, it definitely has.
Yeah.
I feel like every stage, it's a little bit different, right? Like in the beginning, it's like, oh crap, am I going to get people? And then you get people and then you're like, okay, I need a bigger space, but oh crap, that's going to cost me money. I have to pay rent, right? And so like every level that you level up, there's just like bigger problems or bigger, challenges.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely resonate with resiliency in terms of the company. And one of the biggest things I would say for anyone, I'm very lucky that as soon as I started my business, I hired a business mentor, and I still have a business mentor. The group that I work with is very niche to actually out of network rehab clinicians. So really specific to my network. So that's been helpful just to like lean on other people who are having the same struggles as me. So I would say like for anyone who's starting off, you don't have to do it alone, especially nowadays. There's so many mentorships out there. Also a lot of scam mentorships, but you gotta do your due diligence. But that having a mentor and a group of people that are going through it has been really helpful. But our business is still fairly young. We're going into year 3, and we saw definitely this season the effect of our growth and the effect of like word of mouth. But it's still, it's still scary. You're like, am I going to pay my bills this month? Oh yeah, I am. Okay. It's working. So now we just got to worry about next month. And that's pretty much forever until you die.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy? Business is like you say it sometimes, like it's day to day.
Yeah.
You just have to you really don't know what the next day brings. And like you said, you can keep growing in business, but then there's always other hurdles and obstacles along the way as you continue to grow.
Yeah, we've seen it in COVID, right? So many businesses, closing, and companies that you thought that were
strong ones,
strong companies, but just when cash stops coming in, you start feeling it. So
yeah, I guess we have a little bit of a special because we're technically still healthcare, right? And like, here's the thing: people are gonna probably always be in pain. Like that's probably a human experience that's never gonna that won't stop necessarily. But then we have that working in our benefit in terms of like, we're always gonna have some sort of people. But then on the other side, we are more concierge. We don't take insurance. So then we have a little bit of that side that we have to that hurdle to get people to understand why we're different and why it's worth spending money with us. So, that's definitely a challenge. I mean, even in this just general climate, I think everyone's kind of feeling that.
Is this your first business?
Yes.
Yeah.
What's the biggest challenge right now that you will say that you're going through, or it just happens?
I mean, we're always wanting more people.
Bro, is it me, or I'm talking like Romeo Santos, bro? Like I can hear my voice.
Like a little raspy. Right?
You better not be sick.
Because you were at karaoke last.
Oh yeah, is that what you did?
Yes. No.
Yeah, I would say in terms of the business, like we're still, I think making connections with other healthcare providers, like that's kind of where my focus is right now.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't necessarily call it a struggle, but it's just something where my focus is. We just hired on a third PT. So it's myself, my husband, who's a physical therapist as well, an office manager, and another PT. And like at the time, it was just me and my husband. And now I'm kind of trying to step back a little bit so I can focus on the business more, because it's hard to be focusing on the business and in the business, at the same time. So, right. Our big focus is just getting kind of the awareness of why we're different and what we're doing, and
like getting your message out there.
Yeah, for sure. So we've just been trying to really be more consistent with like social media, and so that people can like see what we're doing and see the difference.
And it's you and your husband started the business?
So I actually started on my own.
Okay.
He obviously is a support system in the business originally, but at the time he went into like a traditional clinic setting so that he could have a salary essentially. And I basically was like, all right, I'm going to start this thing. I'm from Naples. He's not. So it was just easier for me to be the primary like face of the business. I have a little bit more tolerance to risk than he does. He likes more of the steady paycheck. So I did it all for a year and a half. And then in April, he started coming part-time and then full-time in January. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Was he always a physical therapist, or because I know you said that you were in a different career and then you went back to school, right?
Yeah.
To get your PT.
Yeah. So he's always just been a physical therapist. He played college baseball and at one point was hoping to go to the big leagues, but unfortunately had an injury. He's had like multiple injuries. Most physical therapists that you hear, they're like, when someone says, "Oh, why'd you get into physical therapy?" They're like, "Oh, well, I was in physical therapy growing up and I did all this stuff." Like, I literally was never injured. I literally never went to physical therapy once until I was in physical therapy school. But my husband...
How long is the school for physical therapy?
So it's a doctorate program, and it's after your 4-year degree, then it depends on the school, anywhere from 2 to 4 years.
Oh, God.
So they have accelerated programs. And then our program was actually a little bit spread out because of... so it was 4 years just based on that specific program. But yeah, so...
And so it's 4 years, and so did you have a athlete background, like growing up, when you were younger, all the way until you got into, going back to school and then opening up this business?
Yeah, so I did like competitive cheer and gymnastics was my background, which I personally consider as an athlete. If you ever try to lift someone over your head, it's very challenging.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my primary background. And then, I started doing just like general gym stuff. I feel like almost, 20 years ago when I was in high school, it wasn't as common, I feel like, for like girls to work out. I don't know. I think it's changed a lot, which I love. So it wasn't really until I started getting into CrossFit that like I started pushing my body in a little bit of a different way and like started weightlifting more and got a little more serious into it and did competitions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
CrossFit is a little more, it has that fame of like being a little more, not dangerous, but a little more risky, right? With like your body, like in terms of injuries.
So funny you say that, because there's actually research out there that says that it's no more dangerous than as compared to like weightlifting or other recreational sports. Yeah. So I would say similar to pickleball, right? If you look at pickleball and you talk to any medical providers, or maybe someone who's played pickleball and has knee pain or something like that, right? When you have this, CrossFit became, and it's still very growing, but it kind of exploded. And when you have this like large amount of people doing this thing, you just hear about these injuries more. Same thing with pickleball. Like in the beginning, people would be like, "Oh, CrossFit," like doctors would be like, "Oh, they're keeping me in business." And now you hear a similar thing with pickleball. So many people are playing pickleball. People are coming, maybe living a sedentary lifestyle, and now all of a sudden they're playing pickleball 5 days a week, right? So I think it has more to do with that. You can get yourself injured in anything, right? Yeah. I think that's my opinion. Overall, as a society, we have more of a problem with doing less activity than more activity. So I think if there was a choice between having, being obese, having diabetes, or having a shoulder injury from CrossFit because you exercise, probably that one's the better choice. But
this is kind of random, but since we're talking about like sports and stuff, yesterday, first time ever in my life, I pulled my hamstring.
There you go.
Playing soccer. Not even just ran really just ran.
Warm up?
Yeah, I didn't warm up. I didn't stretch, nothing. I just got into the game. First time ever. I felt like I felt like a little tear in my hamstring.
Was it high or like up to your butt or by your knee?
No, low. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like by my knee, like a little above my knee, but on the back, right? Yeah. But yeah, and it would just hurt so bad, right? And I was like, geez, and I had to get out the game. And I never like messed up my hamstring before. So I Googled like how to heal a hamstring. And all it says is like rest, ice it, and that's, or like no like stretching, but like very, very lightly if any, like until it feels better, and then
Dr. Google.
Yeah.
So typically, there's a lot of like new research saying that the RICE principle, which was this rest, ice, compression, elevation concept that a lot of people know about and might see online, was kind of this original thought process years ago, but it's a little bit more outdated. So now we say you don't need to rest, but you should be doing some sort of movement. Obviously, I'm guessing this very common mechanism of injury for hamstrings. Was it your kicking leg?
Yes.
Okay. So is this eccentric loading or a quick change of direction of that muscle? So I wouldn't do any fast kicking at the moment, but other than that, like you could still do things.
Right.
Again, come see us. So
something like that though, like I don't feel like I
need physical therapy.
No. I don't feel like I pulled it like so like too bad.
Yeah. Did you have bruising?
No.
Okay. So that's good. So typically if there isn't bruising, that tells us that if there was any sort of micro tearing, it was very minimal. It was just more of a strain.
Yeah. But
one of the highest incidences of a reoccurrence of any injury is prior history of that same injury. So, it's going to change the integrity to some degree of the muscle, especially if you have growing and pain. And so I would say, especially if it was a pull that took you out of the game, I would not just it will get better. Like your symptoms will resolve over time, but it won't. We want to know like, why did that happen? Right. So that's one of our things too. We're not just chasing symptoms. We're also looking at what could be the underlying cause as to why this happened. Right.
Why does that happen? My thought in my head is just that this is just what I think. It's like, I didn't warm up at all. I didn't stretch before the game or anything. And then, I changed my speed, like just from 0 to like just change speed, and then that's kind of when I felt the pull on my hamstring. But I feel like maybe it was because I didn't warm up, I didn't get like going. Is that usually why that happens, or how can people prevent?
Yeah. So like funny thing on this too, we're very evidence based, so I'm going to say research a lot, but there's no evidence that stretching prevents injury.
Wow,
so
really?
Interesting.
There's been randomized controls trials and meta-analyses, which is basically pulling all the research from different places, conglomerating all into one and comparing them.
Because you can pull it like almost at the end of the game too.
Yeah.
When you're warmed up completely.
So now, not to say that warming up doesn't have effectiveness. I mean, it's still important to warm up, but what we see more so often is a couple of things I would probably want to know is like, how often are you playing soccer? Had it been a while since you played? Had you played a lot recently? Usually I'll see like a spike or a change in volume or something like you hadn't done in a while. Mm-hmm. So lack of preparation for that specific task is where we see a lot of people.
That's very true, yeah.
He
hasn't played soccer in years,
right?
And now he's doing it twice a week.
No, but I've been doing it for like the last 3 or 4 weeks.
It's like almost a month now.
You're lucky it wasn't worse.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, typically speaking, like, we're always lucky that it's not worse. But to me, especially if it's been even though you've been doing it for 3 weeks, like I would say it's probably more the lack of preparation. Because maybe in the beginning you were like, just getting back into it, blah, blah, blah. And now by week 3, you're like, now I'm like really into it. Or I'm like really trying or really.
Oh, yeah. Maybe you're pushing yourself more in the game. Like you're trying to run faster and things like that.
Yeah, I would say, it's hard to say without doing an assessment. But if having just this very brief history of that and the fact that you just started playing, you haven't played in years and you just started playing 3 weeks ago, I'm guessing it's more about lack of preparation. Like if you haven't done high velocity kicking in a while, right? Like even if you played it as a kid.
Yeah.
As we age, obviously, some of our mobility naturally changes, gets a little bit less, especially if you're not working on it. So again, it's not about the stretching, but yes, your mobility does decrease over time if you're not staying on top of it. Mm-hmm. So it's probably a combination of those things.
So when you say lack of preparation, what can you do to prepare?
Train.
Yeah.
Oh, train?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
So more time in the gym.
But I feel like I was training, doing these twice a week.
So the difference between training and competing or playing games, right? So kind of the practice stuff or ramping up. Again, I mean, definitely hamstring strength is going to be a big one.
Yeah. It's so frustrating too, right? Like to pull anything, like a hand, like it's annoying.
I haven't.
Why did this happen to me?
I've never had like a full pull of anything, but I've had like an inkling of like, oh, that feels like it's gonna cramp, and like
that's what I had.
I couldn't imagine.
But now I'm sore, like there after. And I had a friend on the team that said he pulled his, but he was like black and blue.
Oh yeah, so that
from like his calf to like yeah.
Did
he go to the doctor? Because he should have.
I'll ask him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Send him too. Sounds like we need to go to your soccer team.
Just go to that.
Yeah, just show up. Just show up and start walking around.
No, actually, that would be great.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But he was out for like 4 months.
Oh my God.
Yeah. For like 4 months, he couldn't play.
Oh. Can you cramp up? Is this true that you can cramp up when you're nervous?
I can't confirm or deny. I mean, I'm sure like if you're talking about your nervous system, like your brain is the control mechanism for everything in your body. So I'm sure. Yeah,
because one time we were playing the state finals back in high school, I remember, and we were literally warming up, but the stadium was almost full. Like, you know, it was something new. And my, like this part right here started cramping up.
Yeah.
Like just walking. And I wasn't even warming up yet.
Really?
And someone said, yeah, sometimes when you're nervous, you can...
I
didn't feel nervous at that moment.
I'll have to look into that.
But now that you're here, I wanted to...
The things you remember. Like
I remember because that never happened to me before.
You couldn't play?
No, I played. Bro, I played. Yeah,
he hit the game-winning shot.
Yeah, but it was annoying because I kept cramping up, you know?
Yeah. No, we played a lot growing up. Like, so to me, it was like so strange. Like yesterday, I was, dang it.
And we talked about it a week before.
Yeah, and he tells me a week before, he's like, be careful. Don't pull anything, right?
Because that happened to me, and you feel like you're like a sipper, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah. And what's actually happening? Are you actually tearing your muscle?
So it kind of depends on where the injury is. If it's closer to the like joint, either because your hamstring is going to attach up to like your butt bone down to the knee. So you technically have 1, 2, 3, 4 hamstring muscles. And then your adductor, your groin muscle can also kind of act like a hamstring. So it depends on where in the muscle. If it's more like at the tendon and more of like a tendon like strain, or if it's in the muscle belly, then it's more of like a micro tearing. So the way I describe it to patients is basically you have 100% healthy muscle with 0 tears and 100% torn muscle, torn through the middle, right? As soon as you go, it's a spectrum. So grade 1 is kind of that first 25%. So really anything past 0 has some form of micro tearing. It's just the severity of it is just going to depend on where you're at. So any sort of true muscle strain has some micro tearing, but it's not as significant, right? And so typically we want that muscle to heal. That could take 3 or 4 weeks for like a very easy grade 1 to just the muscle itself heals. But then when it heals, think about like when you get a scar, you still have the tissue isn't the same, right? So the integrity of the tissue isn't the same. It's healed, but it's not as strong. It can get strong again, right, by strengthening. And that's why you want to go see a physical therapist, because even if it's better, your symptoms get better by doing nothing. That doesn't mean that it can't potentially happen again if we don't actually get it strong. But yeah, so that's usually what happens versus like what's called an avulsion fracture, where like you rip the tendon off and that's a lot more aggressive, and I don't know what could happen. That might have happened. Could have happened to your friend.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So it really depends on where exactly the injury comes
from.
Yeah,
I don't think he got checked, actually. I think he just rested for 4 months.
Oh, Lord.
And he's out there playing now.
Okay, well.
She'll find him.
I'm going to ask him, though. But that's very, very interesting. What's the most common
like
problems?
injuries?
Yeah, injuries or problems that you see with your clients.
Man, I would say, what are we seeing right now? We do see a lot of calf stuff, like calf
really
tendonitis, Achilles tendonitis. So a lot of runners, because even like pickleball, running, even CrossFit, they do running. Even like boot camps, they're doing jumping and these crazy things and running. So you get a lot of that. Like people that don't train, like all of those things are very athletic movements, right? And so most people don't go and like train plyometrics, right? They just go and like do them. So again, kind of bringing it back to your hamstring thing. It's like that quick velocity stuff. It's like, if you haven't done fast velocity movements in a while, or if you're someone hasn't jumped in years and now you're starting a boot camp for the first time, I would never say don't do that boot camp, it's bad for you. But I'd be like, okay, well, you've never jump roped and now you did 500 jump ropes. So can we see how we can run into a problem there a little bit? So
like gradually.
Yeah, it's all about gradual exposure to anything.
I know.
That was going to be like my question because I want to try to start running, right? So like I'm, I guess, one of those people. There's random times like we'll go, because he used to do soccer all the time growing up, and we'll just go run. But I've never done it, never been a sports person. I've worked out here, there, off and on, like for years. But so whenever I go and I just go run, sometimes I notice that I kind of get like a pull in my groin area or like in my hip. And it's always really annoying because like I want to get better. I want to be able to like run and like be able to run longer distances, things like that. And like I always realize that I kind of hit this hurdle of like, how the heck do I train my body to get more used to it? So I stop pulling that.
Yeah. Well, one is come see me.
Yes.
We're seeing the trend here. And then also, we actually have a really great like beginners runner program too, that we do. But a lot of times it's just dialing it back, right? So like if you're used to playing,
I was gonna say.
if you're used to playing soccer and she hasn't done anything and you guys are running together, you're probably not going to be at the same like level of running fitness.
Yeah, and we're over here running 5 miles right at the beginning.
Yeah,
no. It's like a mile, but even then, that's like a lot. I was thinking,
well, straight through. So maybe instead of if a mile bothers you, then do intervals and do four 400s, and rest in between. And then also, most people run too fast, so you should be able to have a conversational pace. Like you should be able to have a whole conversation, and if you're running with your headbuds on, you should be able to sing the song that you're listening to without getting out of breath, or you're running too fast.
Oh, interesting.
So most people run too fast, especially the early. Did you sprint right before that game?
Now that we're doing a little reflection, I actually went. So this game was yesterday, and then on Sunday, remember, I went to do Muay Thai, and I hadn't done Muay Thai in a while too. But all we were doing,
he's just gonna break himself.
That's everything. All we were doing, boxing too.
You guys are on a fitness kick right now.
All we were doing during that class, a lot of it was so many kicks. So now I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, maybe
your leg was already tired.
Overdid it, yeah, because I did that on Sunday, a game on Tuesday, and then Thursday I pulled my hamstring.
Yeah, this is why. Also, another reason why it's really important to have these types of conversations, because this happens all the time. People are like, I did this and I don't know why. And then we continue to have conversations. And they're like, oh, and this, right? Yeah. It's like reflecting back on what happens. And here's the thing, like I'm a physical therapist, I do this, but I also get pain and things happen. So sometimes it's a random, like literally there are times that are just completely random and has never happened again. One time. And if you ask me what happened, I would be like, I have no idea. And then there's the ones that are, especially if they're chronic or they are reoccurring, those are the ones you don't want to ignore, because that's your body telling you something. But I mean, all these things are totally like kind of to bring it back, I would rather people be out there being active than sitting and doing nothing because they're afraid to get injured, right?
Yeah.
We can manage injuries from exercise. Fitness injuries are way more manageable than, injuries from chronic illnesses and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's people come back too soon or just go in a little bit too, quickly.
Yeah.
I went too hard. This conversation was meant to happen because we scheduled this like a week ago or so. And then yesterday I put my hamstring. Today we're talking about. Now I'm connecting the dots. I'm like, oh yeah, I did this. One other thing is sometimes when we run, your like legs get itchy, right? And you said that Joey gets like that.
Joey told me that like sometimes like my legs get itchy because of the circulation or something. But it's weird because I never experienced that before, and I feel like she's gonna put that in my head because she's like, this always happens to me. It's like that's so strange. It never happened to me before, and then all of a sudden, like I try next time I run. My legs are itchy, yeah.
Or maybe you just never noticed it until she said that.
Yeah, it was so weird.
I never heard of like anybody like when you run you get like your legs itchy. Never heard of that.
I will say again, I'm not a medical doctor. I don't know everything by any means, but anytime we hear things like itchy or like itchy kind of leads me more towards like nerve something, right? And it could be, is it at your feet or your legs? Because it could be like if your shoes are too tight.
My legs.
Oh, yeah, you tie your shoes really tight.
Were there mosquitoes, just out of curiosity?
No, it's like early in the morning. I actually said we should go down the trail. He would never.
Okay. So I have changing gears a little bit.
We're going to get people calling in asking about their injuries.
What is one conversation you wish you would have had with someone that you never had or that you could have had sooner?
Oh, Lord. Can you give me an example?
Yeah.
That's a lot of words.
Yeah, so an example would be like, let's say, like, this is just an example. Like, let's say you have a loved one, they're older, passed away, you never had a certain conversation you wanted to have with somebody, with them, or maybe you could have had a conversation that would have like saved that person hurdles along the way and they didn't have to go through what they went through, but you just never had it because of whatever reason.
Yeah,
those are kind of
that's a great question, and that's honestly tough because I would say, and my husband would vouch this, like I don't shy away from difficult conversations. So it's hard to say off the top of my head. I mean, there's always like patient situations after the fact. I can't think of a specific one where after the fact I would have been like, oh, maybe I should have said this so that they would have understood this a little bit better. Or maybe the better one was probably like things you shouldn't have said.
What about what's your suggestion to someone asking for advice on how to be financially successful?
Oh God, marry a rich person. No.
I'm just gonna push this a little bit.
Yeah,
right. Just to the right. It's fine.
Oh, you're good. So, this is something that I think for me is I didn't like grow up in a family that was extremely financially successful. And so for me, I've always been really driven by the desire to be financially successful. So I would say now that I'm older, one of the things that by no means am I there, but one of the things that I try to do is actually live within your means, right? Mm-hmm. So like, I think for anyone financially successful, like being financially successful, can't speak, really is just determined by how many bills do you have, right? Because someone can be financially successful and off $60,000 a year if their bills are $2,000 a month, right? So I would say the first thing is understand your finances and live within your current means, because everything you make above that is just going to be a bonus. Mm-hmm. That isn't necessarily in business. That's more of like a personal thing. Mm-hmm. But I think that a lot of people walk around showing that they're financially successful when really they're probably hurting a little bit more than, they want to show off. So that would be the first thing, is just like get that part in order for sure.
Are you money driven?
I mean, to an extent, but in my line of business, it's hard to be money driven because I'm more outcome driven by people's experiences and like changing the way that our healthcare is treating active people. But I mean, I would like to be comfortable 100%. I would say I'm more success driven than money specifically.
Got it. And healthcare is interesting, right? Like the whole system and everything.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on all of that? Like just healthcare in general, because you mentioned, how healthcare treats people. What are some things that you see that can be, I guess, slowly fixed with that? Is it more people taking a more, I don't know why, I don't like to say the word holistic,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I feel like it has like this weird,
woo kind of connotation.
Yes, exactly. not holistic approach, but maybe a more preventative approach.
Yeah, wellness-based approach, for sure. I think that one of the biggest things that I would like to see is people looking for optimal versus just like the main like baseline, right? So for example, you go get blood work and here's your chart. And like if you do follow like functional medicine people or people that kind of are more in the wellness, true wellness, not like fraud wellness, but like people that are really into longevity and like being fit, not just being, I'm not sick, but I'm well, right? So if you think about the continuum of like sick, well, and fit, right? A lot of traditional medical practice is about not being sick. It's not about being well or being fit, right? So ideally, that's why one of the things that we do, and kind of going back to the hamstring thing, is like, yeah, you can be well, your hamstring doesn't hurt anymore, but are you at a point where you're resilient, or we've gotten you stronger than where you were to start with, right? Traditional care is more about, let's get you from not dying, which is obviously very important in emergency medical care, to like your baseline. But we're not really going beyond that, right? We're not looking at what is beyond, now I'm not sick, or now I don't have this thing, or we're looking at your blood work, and if this is the bottom and this is the top, your doctor's like, well, you're not below the bottom, so we're good. Like, no, if this is optimal,
so true.
Wouldn't we want to be as close to optimal as possible, instead of saying, well, you're not at the worst, so you're probably fine, right? So it's really like that.
And it's really not like the doctor's fault, right? Because that's not what they're incentivized to do, right?
Yeah, it kind of depends,
like
for sure. Within that system, it's definitely a vicious circle.
I was going to say, they just make sure they don't die, but then once they're well enough to not be there, if they're not taking care of themselves, then they just end up back to where they were.
Yeah.
And the doctor's just making sure they don't die.
And that's why you'll start to see more, and we already have concierge medicine and people that are
here.
getting out of like, the traditional medical system, because they can see patients one-on-one. They can have conversations. And listen, doctors also have it bad too. Like, even though the doctors are the higher paid of the medical profession, they still are driven by the insurance. Their reimbursement rates are going down. Our reimbursement, that's why we don't take insurance, because if you go
insurance is crazy, right?
Yeah. If you go to a hospital and you say, I don't have insurance and I need physical therapy, they're going to say that's going to cost you $500. But when I, as a provider, if I, you see me, I submit to the insurance, the insurance pays me $90. So tell me where that other $410 goes, because it doesn't go to me. Right. So like, there's a very big disconnect. And same thing with medical. Like, if you really look at what what insurance prices physical therapy, what insurance prices this brain surgery rate, it's like $100,000, but then you only pay whatever, $10,000. You're like, okay, where's that other $90,000 going, right? Or this hypothetical. So there's a lot of this inflation around.
But if there's that's what's crazy, right? Because the insurance is like the one that runs everything.
Right. They really do. It's all dictated by that.
But if there's no insurance, I feel like what happens when you eliminate insurance from that equation? Because
people
then
would just pay the providers.
but they wouldn't pay the amounts that these services are
It
feed
will,
at.
because it's like a
No,
it's just like a bank. It's like a Ponzi scheme. Like
No.
somebody else is paying for you.
I know, but
Yeah.
I'm saying no. But what if?
But no,
what if-
maybe wouldn't prices go down because everything's so inflated because the doctors and
That's what I
whoever
was
probably
saying.
want to get a certain amount
That's
from
what I
the
was trying to say.
insurance. So I think they would restructure the price.
like prices would go down on things because who's gonna pay? Like, if you're in a hospital bed and you stay 3 days extra, that's like $30,000 more, right? Just as an example, $10,000 a day. Who's gonna pay that? Not the majority of people.
It will break the. I feel like
So
it
the
will
insurance,
break the whole.
like just because you're staying inside of a room another day, there's already transactions being like happening.
Yeah.
You're not even in that equation. Like it's all based around you, but you don't even see that transaction.
That's
right?
a good point. I wonder how much the hospital.
But then what
gets for
happens
that.
when you take out
Yeah.
the insurance? You know what I mean?
It's,
You get what I'm trying to say? Like-
one of the things with insurance is that, again, kind of going into insurance is most helpful for people that have chronic illness for the most part. Not maybe, I'm sure there's people out there that don't feel like the insurance helps them with chronic illness, but like for someone who's healthy, who just needs to go, who wants to go to the doctor one time a year, right? Just to like do an annual, who wants to get blood work, who wants to have emergency medical care just in case, right? Like there isn't really much stuff out there. Like the things that I consider to be healthcare, which is like, gym memberships, like that should be covered by healthcare. Why is it not? It is, if you look at any chronic disease, like diabetes, obesity, heart disease, all of these things that like their primary thing they tell people is diet and exercise. Like if diet and exercise is the thing, then why isn't that part covered by healthcare? But what's covered by healthcare is medical, more the medicalized approach. So it really is like, it's a complex issue. I don't have by any means the answers. That's why I don't take insurance. So
Yeah, and they're not going to cover something that prevents.
Right. Right. No, I mean, I think it's cool to have.
prevents them from getting more money.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's not, I think it's good that more and more people are having this type of conversation around just, medical and insurance and stuff like that. But it is very complex because you think about it and you're like, well, if there's no insurance, I feel like insurance, if
everyone would just stop paying insurance.
like I feel like there's no medical system, at least the way it is in the US, without insurance being so tied in the way it is.
Yeah. I think also another thing, and this kind of comes into being fiscally responsible, is like, if people are understanding of things like HSAs, health savings accounts, and ways that they can actually move money from their taxable income into non-taxable and use it for medical expenses. So it's lowering your taxable income, lowering your tax burden, and you have this money specifically set aside for health stuff. So you have to have it only qualifies with specific insurance things, usually high deductibles, but I think being educated more on other ways that you can utilize your funds to support, if you're someone like who cares more about, I don't get prescriptions. I don't need to go see specialists necessarily. I just need the basics. And then I want to be able to go out of network to anyone who I want to see. And I get to use some of that, my own funds that isn't going to be taxed, and use it. Like, to me, that's a better use of your money.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah. So health savings accounts, HSA, or they have the flexible savings accounts as well. So there's different types, different companies can offer them depending, but then also different insurance
Your bank.
types.
Yeah. Your bank will offer it.
How you never told us you worked at a bank?
Because I feel like, well, that's another topic, right? Because I feel like the bank creates all these allocations.
Damn, you got medical,
Crush the bank and the insurance company.
banks, right?
It's a long conversation.
Yeah. There's no perfect answer, but there are some options out there. And
What do you think about like not prescriptions, but just pills in general?
like
I didn't know how to
are we
ask
talking about like
I didn't know how to ask that.
like
Yeah,
supplementation or
like let's say you feel you have
or opioids?
let's say you have a headache and somebody takes an Advil. I don't even know if Advil goes with headache because I don't ever like.
Yeah. So typically you have like the NSAIDs and like acetaminophen. So NSAIDs, non-steroid, anti-inflammatory.
But are you somebody that like
recommends
if something hurts, like you'll take like an ibuprofen or something, or like you have a headache, you'll take like a.
It depends. I would say first thing I would check in with myself and be like, all right, am I dehydrated?
True.
Right? Like, do I just need to drink some water? Am I hungry? Like, these, what I call biofeedback, like your own body, like listening, did you not sleep last night? Whatever. I don't really get headaches too often. So luckily I don't take medication very often. What I will say when it comes to musculoskeletal pain or like knee, shoulder, and stuff like that, I tell my patients that you shouldn't have to take Advil to go play your sport. If you need to take Advil to go to sleep, because sleep is important and that sleep is going to impact your recovery and the way your body heals, then that's fine. But also, that's a temporary thing. It's, I have a patient that is like, I have this concoction. It's like 4 pills that I take every time.
Oh my God.
Right. And he did that for years. And he's like, and my doctor said that I'm having some liver problems. So I'm going to stop doing that. And I'm like,
yeah, you might pop a pill before you go to sleep and never wake up.
Oh my God.
So I think, it depends on how you're using it. There's, of course, if you're using it responsibly and it's not something that you're taking like,
every day.
Skittles every day,
Skittles.
then there's a time and a place for it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to avoid pills as much as possible. Knock on wood, all that stuff. But yeah, I try to avoid as much as possible. Just because, like, I don't know. I feel like what you said. If I have a headache, sometimes I'll just, drink some water or whatever, or maybe I'm dehydrated, and it's crazy.
Take a nap.
It's crazy because I talk to, like, if I say that to my parents are a little old school. They're like, "What? Drink water? What are you talking about?" Like, I'll take a Dayquil or something. I'm like, I don't know.
A Dayquil. That has more things in it than just headache stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think business is for everybody?
Do we think what?
Business is for everybody?
No, I know it's not.
Why?
Because not everybody wants to do it. I think there are 3 people, and I had the conversation because when you hire, like you look for people you don't necessarily want to hire someone who wants to start their own business, right? Because then that's not going to be great for your business. So you got to kind of understand where someone's at. But I think a lot of people want to start a business, but really what they want is a job that pays well, where they're respected and they're able to like have a life balance. Because I bet you if a lot of people got that, less people would probably own businesses.
Why do people want to start businesses? Why do you think? Like, why do you think they want to start a business?
Yeah, I can speak for myself. I didn't want to work for anyone else.
Why?
I don't know. I'm just a control freak, probably. No, I've gotten a lot better. But I think for me, like, I didn't see anything out there that I wanted to work for, number one. So that's like first and foremost. Probably had I moved back here and there was a business that I thought my values aligned, right out of school, I would have more than likely gone and worked for one. But because I knew, like, when I did my clinicals, I was miserable for however many 6 months because I was like working with the same patient population, like people that were practicing really outdated type of stuff. A lot of like massage, a lot of laying around. Like, I was just like, imagine doing that for, and then seeing 15 to 17 people a day. Like, I see 6, right? So it's just like,
that's draining. That's
I would never want to do that 5 days a week, right? Like, you're seeing almost 100 people a week. And so there wasn't anything out there that I could even see myself wanting to work for. So it was like not an option.
Right. Why did you go into business?
Well, financial freedom. That's to make money, to be honest. It's not that I love like helping people through the service or the product or whatever, but besides that, like the way that I think about it is like we leave our house every day, right? Some of us longer hours than others. Why would I not try to make as much money so that all these hours that I'm leaving my house, I can recoup back, like I leave my family. Like I love spending time with family and just experiences, and that time that you have, like if you take that vacation time or whatever, all these hours, if you are struggling, I think financially, then it's difficult. But when you start making, like you start building this machine in business that, let's say, okay, you go into a business, you're wearing every hat, doing all the things, and then you start putting really good people in place, right? It allows you to work on the business instead of within the business. And now you have this machine, right? Yeah. Because it's like, okay, now this business functions without me in it. And then on top of that, I have such a great team that this business can grow without me in it.
That's definitely the goal, right? Like time freedom, it sounds like, and even though you're saying money, it really sounds like you want time freedom. Like money can lead to time freedom, right?
Yeah, because definitely. I mean, we're all trading our time for money. We all every day.
It's the only thing that will buy you time.
That's
the only thing. And I wanted to ask you, because I probably have the similar thinking. I think that being able to, like, I've never made, working for somebody else, I've never made the amount of money I made in business. Mm-hmm. Like I got used to business numbers, right? And even going back to working, a 9 to 5, it still wasn't, the financial part wasn't what I wanted. But at the same time, in business, it's not easy, but just being able to say, okay, this is what we're going to do today, and have no caps or no limits on how much you can make in business by helping other people. I think that's what really, drives us to business.
For sure. I mean, the ceiling is obviously much higher, and like, why would you work really, really hard to make money for someone else, right? It's like, but we need people out there that don't want to own a business.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But that's interesting, right? That point of like, why would you work?
I feel like that's exactly what I experienced.
I think that if there's growth, like what you mentioned, like people that want to, like, if there's growth there, I don't think people mind it. But once you're part of something where you know that the ceiling is really low right away, I think that's what discourages people.
Yeah.
Like if you, just as an example, like, if you said, there's this opportunity here and we need you, just as an example, we need you to fill in this role, and this is how big this could be, this like that, then I don't think I would mind.
And it comes from the top too. It all depends on where the business owner, like where does that person wants to go to. Right. Mm-hmm. If that person is good making a certain amount of money, it's going to trickle down to everybody working for him.
Right.
Because nobody else is going to keep growing financially.
Yeah, for sure. That's an important part for us too. Is like, obviously there has to be a salary cap at some point. If you're a business person, you want to be within a certain revenue. But in my opinion, if someone's capping out their salary, then they're probably making me a lot of money. And so like, then you're starting to look at, a percent ownership or some sort of opportunity beyond that, right? Because if someone is truly capping out their salary, that means that they've probably been with you for 5 years or whatever, and they're doing the max amount. And so like, why wouldn't you want to start giving that person 1% or whatever of revenue, right? So it's like, you have to show them the vision of like, here's where you're at, but there's really no stop. Mm-hmm. It's here's what I'm thinking, and then do you have anything that looks bigger than this? Because I'm open to, there's really no like limit at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I just saw Steve Wynn that owns the Wynn on Las Vegas, the Strip. He said that what keeps employees isn't how much they get paid, it's how they get treated inside of
100%
the company, which is another interesting thing, right? Because this is like another thing as a business owner that you have to get good at or figure out how to get good at. Is like, now you have the company culture and so on and so forth, and kind of as a business owner, you wear so many hats that you might be stressed out of your mind that day, but you can't necessarily show it, especially
that's hard
to the team.
Yeah, I think like company culture is a big thing for us. Like when we do our meetings, we have conversations and like reiterate, you know, our ideal client avatar, our values, like are the things that we look forward to. When I first hired my office manager for like the first 2 weeks, I'd have to be like, okay, you need to leave like at 4:30. I don't want you staying past 4:30. Like, and then she would like stay, and then it was like 5:15. I'm like, why are you still here? Like, she's like, oh, well, at my other job, they would say I could leave at this time, but it was like kind of like implied that you couldn't really leave at that time. I'm like, why would they say that then? Like, no, like leave at 4:30.
Yeah.
Like tell me if, you know, we give like a fitness stipend for like to pay a gym membership up to $250, which like not a lot, you know, there's not many more gyms that cost more than $250, but like, I want fitness to be a priority in my people's lives. Like, we only hire people that understand fitness. Our office manager runs marathons. That she actually was a patient of ours. That's how she came on. So, you know, we really try to encompass that like culture as much as possible. We try to do outings, you know, once a month with our team. Right now now it's 4. So, we went to Chops for our Christmas dinner. So I was like, it was only the 3 of us, but I was like, order whatever you want.
That's great.
So, you know, it's hard doing those things, but you have to, right? Like those are the things that matter. Mm-hmm. You don't want your employee leaving you for a $2 pay raise somewhere else, right? Yeah. That's silly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree. Do you want to read off the questions?
Okay.
These are just fun rapid fire questions.
Okay, go ahead.
They're nothing hard. Okay. What digital or software tools do you use daily to make your life easier?
Ooh, okay. We have a lot of them. So we use Jane, which is our EMR, which is our electronic medical record system. We use Slack as inter-office communication. We use HubSpot for CRM. We use Gmail, I guess if you count that, for email. What else do we use? I use Spotify regularly. I think those are the main ones. HubSpot does a lot for us. Yeah.
Okay. iPhone or Android?
iPhone. No one wants green bubbles.
That's what they always say.
I agree.
If you could only eat one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Steak.
Oh, yes. Do you prefer winter or summer?
Oh, man. Summer in Naples?
Yeah, in Naples.
I don't know. This winter was really weird this year. I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, everything is being weird this year.
Yeah.
Like the
last like 4 years.
I like how cold it was though this year.
It was cold, and then I was like, I'm ready for it to be warm. So I'm going to say summer just because there's more like opportunity for fun things at that time.
Okay. What is your favorite holiday?
God. That should be easy, but I'm not really. I would say Christmas if I had to pick one.
Do you prefer to relax at the beach or the pool?
If I don't have to carry any of my stuff, the beach. So like if I'm at like a resort, but if I do, then the pool.
Fifth Ave or Mercado?
Fifth Ave.
If you could only work 2 hours a week, what would you do in those 2 hours?
Oh, man. I would probably work on growing the business. Probably, I'm noticing, although I've only been a physical therapist for 3 years now, that I'm starting to lean more into like the business end of things than like the fulfillment side of things. So I'd be doing probably stuff like this for 2 hours. That would be like my dream job. Just go talk to people.
A book you'd recommend to read?
Oh man. Why We Sleep is a good one. It's very dense, but it's from Dr. Matthew Walker, and it's just all about the importance of sleep. I'm like sleep obsessed.
Really?
Yeah. So
like,
we could have talked about sleep for a long time. Yes.
Really?
Yeah. So we just bought an 8 sleep like pod cover. So it's a temperature regulated pod cover. If you're anyone who's a hot sleeper, because my husband and I both are. Love that. Like I have like a whole pill routine.
I've never looked forward to sleeping.
He literally tries to stay awake.
Since I was little, I've never looked forward to it. I don't know. It's like,
so
because I think about it, damn, one day we're gonna sleep for a long, long time.
Yeah. The sleep till you're dead analogy is not good. So listen,
that's literally him.
Going back to the injury risk stuff, sleep was actually one of the highest things that was correlated with injury or lack of sleep. So when you went from 4 hours of sleep to 8 hours of sleep, there was like, I don't remember, like 200% increase in like reduction in injury risk, or maybe it was like two times, which is 200%.
Can some people function better with less sleep?
Read the book Why We Sleep, because Matthew Dr. Walker would say no.
Okay.
And 7 to 9 has still been proven to be like the correct amount. So
7 to 9 hours.
Yeah.
I read something about the DNA, that some people are like they're born with different DNAs, right? And some of them just need like 3 to 4 good hours of sleep.
He needs to read the book too, huh?
Yeah.
That was
If you
Gary
don't want to
Brecka,
read,
no?
if you don't want to read the
Brecka
book,
said that, right?
I think so, yeah.
Gary Brecka said something like that.
I don't know who that is, but if you like podcasts, he's also been on a ton of people's podcasts.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's been on like Huberman and some other people.
Yeah.
But
you gotta check out Gary Brecka.
Okay, I'll look at it.
He's from here.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, but he blew up now.
Okay.
He's huge, yeah.
I don't know if I trust anyone that blows up.
Oh, he blew up. He blew up like completely.
Okay.
Yeah, because
wait.
what about when you sleep 4 hours and you feel like you have more energy than someone that slept 8 hours?
Yeah, so I can't speak to exactly what happens there, but it's kind of more in like that napping. Consider it more towards the napping side than anything else. Like when I nap, it's like 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours, right?
Yeah.
Like I can't do like an hour. I feel groggy.
Every time I nap, my head hurts when I wake up. That's why I don't nap.
But I feel like she's saying, I think it depends. Either maybe you slept too long or too little.
I just love living.
Yeah, and it also depends.
I love being awake.
I mean, that's a great answer.
Yeah. Like if you're, let's say you live till you're 80.
Are you a morning person?
Oh yeah.
Oh gosh.
Morning, afternoon, and
you're
night.
an all day person.
Yeah. Like if I'm let's say you live till you're 80, right? You're asleep 40 years.
Yeah.
So you really only.
I plan
live
on living till I'm like.
Isn't that crazy?
110.
But isn't that crazy though?
Yeah.
And that's if you haven't
so
taken any
weird
naps.
the way he looks at life.
No, but it's true. If you live till you're 80.
No, I mean, I
It
get
is,
it.
but
I
I'm
get
going to
it.
tell you right now, you're not going to live till you're 80 if you're sleeping 4 hours a night, because there is a lot of research surrounding Alzheimer's disease, neurocognitive issues that are all related to lack of sleep. So
I sleep, but like 7 hours at least. But I just don't ever look forward to sleeping.
That's great.
All right. Next question.
If you could have lunch with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh gosh, probably Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
I've never heard of that. Who's that?
She was a Supreme Court justice.
Oh, really?
She's dead.
Okay.
For not sleeping.
What's your favorite restaurant in Naples?
Oh, we just had this. It's bad because we don't go out to eat all that much, and I'm like one of those people that goes to the same places.
Yeah.
But I already told you I love Chops because steak.
Is that your favorite steak place in town?
It's the best.
There's some good ones.
There are, but that one's the best steak I've had. It was Australian Wagyu beef, and it's.
Where else would you recommend for steak?
Jimmy P's is pretty good.
Jimmy P's is good.
Yeah.
I want to see what she says.
And we get stuff from there, but I still think Chops is the best. So I don't know. Chops is where I recommend personally.
Okay. When you think of the word successful, who comes to mind?
Gosh. Honestly, the first person that comes to mind is Sarah Blakely. She's the owner of Spanx. If you're familiar with that. She's also really cool. I've never met her in person, but just based off of her Instagram personality, seems really cool. She's also married to a very successful man.
Wasn't she on Shark Tank?
Who is she married to?
Jesse Itzler.
Oh yeah, I love him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
his wife.
the stuff that he puts out. I just sent you his stuff.
Yeah.
Really bad with names.
Yeah. No, you'll know if you see him. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
Like the business stuff that he puts out is really good.
Yeah.
If you could choose any other career path, what would it be?
Honestly, it would be probably still in the marketing field, but for probably CrossFit, like more specifically into like the CrossFit field and working in like marketing, advertising for CrossFit.
What's been your best investment?
My health.
What's a bad piece of advice you've heard people telling others?
Rest your injuries.
That's a good one.
I'm going to go run after this. Well, perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
It was really great speaking with you, and I feel like we learned a lot. Yeah.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.